All right, now we hit a calculus problem, and I won't say they do this on purpose, leaving these sorts of questions towards the end of the exam. They can mix them around as they want, but here we go. And you'll see that the first thing is they want you to find the derivative. And 3 marks, which is telling me that there's probably going to be 3 pieces to my derivative. But we know, we've practiced. I'm going to recopy this just for a second. Because when you do your derivative, again, the point I've been making is everywhere there's a variable, there's going to be a result in the derivative. So I know there's going to be a result here, a result here, a result here. The constant number 3 goes away to 0 when we take the derivative. So the derivative. Now, the steps we know. Exponent times the number in front. So 3 times 1/3 turns out to be 1. Reduce the exponent by 1. Now, that 1x squared, I'm just going to write as x squared. 2 times 2, reduce it to 1. I won't write it. There is a 1, so 1 times -12 is -12. Reduce 1 becomes 0, so the x is essentially goes away, and the 3, as I said before, is a constant. It will go to 0. So 3 marks, 1, 2, 3. Part B, find the interval of x for which x is decreasing. So we're looking for 2 things. 1, I see the graph, I'll see where it's decreasing, but here I'll show you a quick way to find that. So the first thing, back to our calculator, I've already input the equation. You'll see here's 1/3. Some of you can make it look like a fraction, but essentially it's just 1 divided by 3 all the way over, and there's the whole equation. Now I'm going to hit graph, and first thing you see is the fact that my window is from the previous problem. So the quickest way to get back is just to hit the zoom standard. That's kind of the default screen, and now I've got something that looks a bit like that. As you can see, I don't see where the maximum or where the minimum values are. What I can see is that it went up, must have come back down, and is now going back up again, which tells me that if I zoomed out, I would see the minimum and that maximum. And in between those 2 points, that's where this function's decreasing. Now, just to try and see what I can see, let's make that 100. And I almost saw the minimum, so I'm not going to make that much more than -20. And now let's see if I can see things. So where's this function is decreasing is from here to there, and so we are looking for the maximum and minimum values. Yeah, let's go off and calculate some maximum and minimum values. I'll start off with the maximum. You should know how to do this. Make sure your cursor's to the left of the maximum point, and then make sure it's to the right. You don't have to go too far, but you can see that between those 2 arrows, my maximum's in there, and just move it over. So -6.0001, that must be -6. So I have -6 is going to be 1. Now this is part B. And it's not going to equal -6. It hasn't started decreasing at -6, it's at 0. So it's between -6 and then you'll have to go find that positive value where the minimum is. You're getting these long decimal numbers. basically because of the way the calculator is running its program, and it basically says go a certain distance and then stop. And so, but you can pretty much guarantee that that is going to be 2. And so the interval for which it's decreasing is between -6 and 2. That's one way of getting these two numbers, by graphing it, finding the maximum, finding the minimum. There's a second way, again I said, and that is, now this is pretty much just by your calculator. The second way is to set your derivative equal to 0. And by solving that equation, you should get the 2 points, and you would need to know that it's decreasing in between those 2 points. It could be increasing between those 2 points. That's why it is good to look at the graph. And the way I solve that is probably the quickest way you should know is going into the polyroot finder, because you'll get both. So it's order 2 because it's a square. So I'm just going to jump right into it. And my x1, x2, x3 is going to be 1, 4, and -12. So 1, 4, -12. And then I just need to solve. And they're much cleaner, -6 to 2. So that's a second possible way of getting these values for where it's decreasing.